गुड आफ्टरनून सर।
गुड आफ्टरनून। यूट्यूब का लिंक हो गया, मिल गया होगा।
यस सर, मैं देखी। गुड नून मैम।
गुड आफ्टरनून सर। गुड आफ्टरनून मैम।
गुड आफ्टरनून
सर, मैम की प्रोफाइल में मैम जो प्रीवियसली एसोसिएटेड थी जितनी भी कंपनीज में, उसमें सर एक कंपनीज के नेम के प्रोनाउंसिएशन में थोड़ा सा मुझे डाउट हो रहा है। दैट इज पुंज लियोट ग्रुप।
हाँ ठीक है, पुंज लॉयड।
अच्छा, पुंज लॉयल ग्रुप। ओके,
पुंज लॉयड
लॉयड ग्रुप। ओके सर, थैंक यू सर। हाँ
हाँ सर, मैं बस शेयर कर रही हूँ।
और लीगो ग्रुप, एक सर लीगो ग्रुप है, DNI टैलेंट एट लीगो ग्रुप, LEGO।
ठीक है ना।
ओके सर।
चलो थोड़ा वो कर रहा हूँ, काउंट थोड़ा।
यस सर।
तो पीपीटी मुझे रन करनी है?
नहीं, पीपीटी तो दिया नहीं मैडम ने कुछ।
ये अभी अच्छा रुचि मैम ने कुछ शेयर किया था।
बाय चांस नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम हो तो, वैसे तो नहीं होगी।
हाँ,
बहुत अच्छी जगह बैठी हूँ जहाँ नेटवर्क प्रॉपरली आता है।
तो कर लें मैम। सर मतलब शेयर कर दे क्या?
यस। नहीं मतलब शेयर मीन्स व्हाट?
यूट्यूब की लिंक, मतलब यहाँ पे ज्वाइन होने की भी लिंक और यूट्यूब की भी लिंक।
तो 5 मिनट पहले शेयर करना ना।
ओके सर।
मैम लिंक को पोस्ट भी कर सके तो कर दीजिएगा FB पेज पे, क्योंकि कल कुछ मैसेजेस थे कि प्लीज शेयर द लिंक ऐसे करके, मतलब वो रजिस्टर्ड नहीं कर रहे हैं बट दे वांट टू अटेंड द सेशन।
अपन ने किसी को शेयर नहीं किया, फिर ये यहाँ पे मैसेज कैसे आया?
मीन्स
यूट्यूब पर कोई वर्षा नाम है, उनका मैसेज आया गुड आफ्टरनून ऑल।
वर्षा मैम इज अवर फैकल्टी इन मैथमेटिक्स। वर्षा पाठक
हाँ,
मैम।
एक वर्षा पाठक मैम है, वर्षा उपाध्याय मैम है, बट ये वर्षा ठाकरे है। उन्होंने गुड आफ्टरनून लिखा, तो अभी तो अपन ने शेयर भी नहीं किया।
डोंट नो, मे बी उनको पता हो क्योंकि बाकी जगह शेयर हुआ है ना।
लाइव हुआ होगा तो नोटिफिकेशन होगा, मे बी सब्सक्राइब द चैनल।
हाँ हो सकता है। पॉइंट।
हेलो हेलो
छाया मैडम आ गई क्या?
सर, आपने मुझे एक्चुअली में कोहोस्ट नहीं बनाया तो मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है।
नहीं बना दिया तो पहले, क्या हुआ आपको?
नहीं, रुचि मैम है, मैंने।
नहीं,
सर
दोनों को
नहीं
बना।
आए अभी मैम, अभी
कोई बात
छाया
नहीं।
मैम। हाँ
नहीं
जी।
चलो ठीक है, बना दिया, आपको ही बना दिया, दोनों को बना दिया तो ठीक है।
सर, मैं
जी
लिंक शेयर कर दूँ ना?
हाँ शेयर, अभी कितना बजे है?
सर,
सर
2 मिनट ही
वन।
बचे हैं इसलिए।
तो थोड़ा रुक जाओ ना, मैडम को थोड़ा आ जाने दो।
ठीक है
छाया
सर।
मैडम को थोड़ा आ जाने दो।
लिंक शेयर प्लीज, और सबके मैसेज आ रहे हैं।
लिंक शेयर कर दो, देखेंगे जो ज्वाइन हो फिर देखते हैं अपन, ठीक है। हम्म। मनीषा मैडम।
सर, कर दी।
हाँ ठीक है। देखना है सर, धर सर आते हैं और वो शायद धर मैडम आती है तो उनका।
हाँ सर। So Chhaya ma'am is here, join करते हैं. So Chhaya ma'am नहीं पर है.
आ रहे फोटो आ रहे हैं. हाँ, Chhaya madam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah,
Afternoon,
you
ma'am.
are co-host, so you can share the slides, na?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay. Just waiting for Dr. Dhar, then we will start. Oh, yeah. It's in screen. Yes, madam, it is visible, but someone is
Sir मैं annotation बंद कर देती हूँ.
annotation, yeah. I think annotation can be activated by Chhaya madam. हो सकता है? Okay.
Ma'am can off the annotation.
All right.
Yeah. So nobody can do this circle.
सर्कल
Uh,
ये नहीं है क्या?
Is it working now?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am,
not
it's-
showing slides आपको.
No, I've stopped sharing. Probably I'll just wait for us to start if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
All right, thank you.
ये तो डिस्टर्बेंस है. आपको ईयरफोन नहीं है क्या? हाँ वही ना. मैं तो बंद कर दिया, लेकिन इधर से जा रहा है ना.
हाँ 5 मिनट के. About this COVID in Singapore.
So today, thankfully, we have started the second phase of circuit breaker. So we're not calling it lockdown here. We're calling it circuit breaker. And what has happened today is that a lot of businesses have reopened. The malls have reopened. Dining has started for restaurants where they have enough space for social and safe distancing. So all of that has started. Local schools, the kids are going already, but most of the international schools are now on the holidays, so nothing really changes for us. Most of the professionals continue to work from home, and that's what I'm doing today as well. But I would just say that it's a great wave of relaxation. We in Singapore have been experiencing this since the second week of January. So I would just say that it's a very welcoming environment. But of course, we have to be very cautious. There is still no vaccine, so COVID hasn't gone away. But जैसा कहते हैं कि COVID के साथ जीना सीख रहे हैं, and that's how it is for us here in Singapore at the moment.
Yeah, actually, Singapore government has done very good things at from the beginning. So I don't think that there is more cases in Singapore.
At the moment, for the last 2 weeks or so, the cases have been under 400 daily. So it's been quite contained. In fact, when we started off, the government was able to curtail widespread quite effectively till the time it kind of reached the dormitories. And once it reached the dormitories where the work permit holders stay, it just kind of offshooted. And then we were having daily cases of 10,000 plus. But thankfully, fingers crossed, it's kind of on the decrease at the moment. And of course, the size of the island matters. It's smaller than Delhi if you compare geographically. So of course, that kind of gives the kind of control the government wants to have.
Yeah. We have also opened our university. So today I have joined from university.
Lovely to note that. And yes, of course, one can see the gear, the mask that you're wearing, and I can see Dr. Mandal wearing a mask as well. So yes, I think all precautions are well called for.
Today we had meeting with the Professor Dhar. So actually we are planning about the examinations of our students.
I see. So do you anticipate any changes in terms of the examination modalities, or do you think you'll be able to deliver it the way you've been doing in the past?
We are planning for online examination, and that will be the first time in our university.
Amazing. As Dr. Dhar keeps saying, this pandemic is bringing about so many opportunities to learn new ways of living and new ways of doing things. So wish you and the university all the luck.
Yeah. Actually, we have to also transform these operations. So we are going to conduct this examination first time online. So we are preparing for that. That means the students will take examinations from their home. So all that safety and all that we have to consider for that.
Of course we have to. And then I had the privilege of attending the webinar yesterday, where I think one of the underlying message that was given by Dr. Dhar was trust is going to become such an important value. And I think that's what's going to come handy for all of you as you prepare the modalities around examination, because for the first time, students would be writing exams from their homes. And of course, a lot has to go on the lines of trust.
Professor Mandal,
I just need to know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
No, I was just saying, do I need to admit people? So I just clicked on admit if I'm supposed to do that.
No.
Okay.
Professor Mandal, you can unmute yourself.
सर एक मिनट, वो मैंने एक्चुअली में सर आप कीजिए. मंडल सर.
मंडल सर आप अनम्यूट कीजिए. I think there is some problem, Manisha.
Okay sir, give me a minute. सर आप कीजिए. मंडल सर अभी ट्राई कीजिए.
Professor Dhar has also joined from the university. Sir, mute has. Yeah, Mandal sir, now you are unmuted.
हाँ, बार-बार कौन मेरे को म्यूट कर रहा है मुझे पता नहीं चल रहा है.
नहीं सर, वो एक्चुअली में बीच में इशू हो जाता है, तो इसलिए मैंने करके रखा है कि मतलब पार्टिसिपेंट्स अपने आप को अनम्यूट ना कर सके।
अब देखिए विनोद जी को मैं खास वेलकम करना चाहता था बिकॉज ही वाज repenting that he could not join in the last 4 days. He missed a lot. मैंने खास वेलकम करना चाहता था विनोद जी को।
करो, म्यूट अनम्यूट करो सर को।
एक मिनट सर, मैं करती हूँ। विनोद सर, अब आप ट्राई कीजिए, हो जाएगा। Yes.
Yeah. Now you are unmuted, sir. Vinod sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
ऐसे बॉस चला गया। Madam, you heard only yesterday's session, is it? Or did you hear the previous days also?
No, it was just yesterday.
Sorry,
I said I
Sound is
just
cracking.
attended yesterday.
I see. Yesterday was Dr. Dhar, so yeah, I was looking at some feedback of the previous 3 days prior to Dr. Dhar's session. We had so far a mix of academicians as well as people from industry, senior level. So,
And I think Dr. Mandal, this is an amazing opportunity to kind of bring the academia and the corporate and non-corporate together, because it's all about providing simulation and stimulation at the same point in time, while also being conscious that, and I mean, I'm preaching to the teachers here, but then just being conscious that the adult span of attention is less than 3 seconds in the world of digital transformation. So kind of talking for an hour at times to an online audience can surely be a challenge. And with that, over to you, Dr. Dhar.
Good noon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir,
yeah.
now, yeah, we can start the session, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. On behalf of Sri Vaishnav School of Management, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya Indore, I welcome Ms. Chhaya Sinha, Executive Coach and HR Consultant, as a resource person for Day 5 of 1 week webinar series on Human Resource Management. Ms. Chhaya is joining from Singapore. I also welcome our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rupinder Dhar, sir, Dr. Santosh Dhar, Madam, Dean, Faculty of Doctoral Studies and Research, my colleagues, Professor Mandal, faculty members, and all the participants of this webinar. Today's topic is role of executive coaching in leadership development. So I invite Professor Dhar for his welcome address on this theme. Sir, please.
Good afternoon once again. Well, I'm happy to inaugurate this webinar and welcome our guest speaker for today, Ms. Chhaya Sinha. The theme of the seminar is very appropriate, as we know that HRD mechanisms, HRD processes like coaching, mentoring, counseling, career development, potential appraisal, performance appraisal, and so on, play a very significant role in employee development. When we talk about any kind of change in the organization, when we talk of any kind of particularly development, then these mechanisms come into play. In recent times, coaching has emerged as a very powerful mechanism. And it is not used only for employee development in general, but also for leadership development. Therefore, the topic chosen for this webinar is very timely, and I'm sure that our guest speaker, who happens to be the expert in coaching, will be throwing light on the contemporary issues, and particularly issues which have emerged because of COVID-19 and what we'll be doing post-COVID-19. So this is the very crucial period during and post-COVID-19. This coaching, in fact, many authors prefer to say coaching skills, as I said, have become very important, and how this mechanism will be used more for leadership development. So now we are not only talking about subordinate development. Here we are focusing more on leadership development, because the current thinking is that when we say leader, we are not referring to anyone who is at the top of the organization. At every level, there is a leader who will have to shape the organization, shape the functions towards the accomplishment of organizational goals. So with these words, I'm very much confident that by the end of webinar, we will be better off in our understanding about coaching, in fact, specifically executive coaching for leadership development. Over to you, Dr. Shukla. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Before inviting our resource person, now invite Professor Ruchi Arya for brief introduction of today's resource person, Ms. Chhaya Sinha.
Okay. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for providing me the opportunity to introduce our resource person to the audience. Today, we are having with us Ms. Chhaya Sinha. She is an experienced business leader turned HR executive with 2 decades of stellar and purposeful corporate experience in India and Singapore. She brings commercial acumen and matrices to the people agenda with a proven track record in the leadership development, high performance coaching, culture, organization design, and diversity and inclusion. She has well executed roles in country and global capacity with leading and purposeful organization. And most recently, she was the global head of D&I talent at Lego Group. As a part of Talent COE, she relentlessly worked with the senior business and HR leaders to drive talent strategies and impact with an inclusion lens, and was a part of the global talent leadership team. Prior to that, she was worked with Standard Chartered Bank, Aviva Life Insurance, Punj Leod Group, and Panasonic. She graduated from DEVV Indore and did MBA from Ford School of Management, Delhi. Ms. Chhaya prides herself on being a transformation leader who can empathetically drive change and build business capability by bridging the gap between the right job and the right talent in an ever-disruptive work environment. She is human and humble with high emotional intelligence that helps her to connect to a diverse set of population to achieve business outcomes with a strong collaborative leadership quality. Recognizing her for her transforming contribution in the field of diversity and inclusion, Ms. Chhaya was listed on the Economist Top 50 D&I Global Professional for 2 consecutive years, 2015 to 2017. Currently, she based in Singapore. Ms. Chhaya is now a freelancer SETP accredited executive coach, ICF, IFS certified facilitator, executive consultant, and public speaker. She is also heading Matrax Singapore, which is converging, involving, and connecting global platform. She loves to call herself World Peace Lady in a sari and believes that her every Ordinary inclusive action is an extraordinary step towards a better and happier world. I feel privileged to invite World Peace Lady in a sari, Ms. Chhaya Dhar Sinha, for the session. Over to you, ma'am. I welcome you once again. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ms. Arya. That was indeed a lovely introduction. And to you, Dr. Dhar, getting an introduction by the stalwart himself, no pressure at all, sir. I would try and do my best in delivering the session today and then later answering whatever questions that are surfacing. I'm just going to now share my screen. And once I do that, let me know as you can see it.
Yeah.
Great. So as we've already spoken about the topic for the day, I would be talking about the role of executive coaching in leadership development. Now, what I understand is that SVSM has been going through this national webinar series where there have been people coming in from the corporate, from the academia and other sectors to come and talk about their own areas of expertise and bringing those nuggets of wisdom and knowledge to all of you. What I have to offer today in terms of the structure, I will be talking about what is leadership development, what is executive coaching, the role of executive coaching in leadership development. And while I'm there, I will also be touching upon, as Dr. Dhar said, what is happening because of COVID. So during and after of the pandemic that we all are experiencing at the moment, how will the role of coaching change? I would then speak about the shift and dwell a little more in terms of how does the shift really happen from the dilemma to progress zone. And lastly, I have a little gift for you today. And the gift is, I would want to give a sneak peek of the toolkit of some of the powerful coaching questions that I use with my clients. And I would love to give that to you, which you could take back either for self-coaching or probably coaching people in your network. And once I've covered all of that, I would want to have some time for open house where we could have constructive, collaborative conversation. And my mantra there is, please ask whatever that you want to ask. No question can be stupid, only answers can be. And that's what I've learned in all these years of working. Having said that, I'm looking at spending about 35 to 40 minutes talking, post which I would then want to invite an open house. I was saying earlier to Dr. Mandal that in today's digital world, the average adult span of attention is just 3 seconds. It's not even in minutes now. And it's a huge challenge when you're sitting with a great online audience like this to make sure that it is time well invested by the participants. And having said that, I would do my very best. So starting with what is leadership development? So while there are hundreds of definitions out there, I have picked up the one from Mac Lake, which is really close to my heart and my experience. And this is how I look at leadership development. Now, as you can read on the screen, leadership development is an intentional process in which one interacts with an experienced leader, producing transformation in the character and competencies that increases their ability to influence people outcomes and culture. I would request you to focus on the words which have been underlined. What we need to understand, and now I would want to zoom into the corporate, while it just isn't true only for corporate, it's true for any sector, whether business or non-business, but just zooming into the corporate sector, when an organization decides of budgeting a leadership development program, it is an intentional program. A lot of work has been done before the program gets designed and brought to the employee. So what needs to be done is a gap analysis. So the gap analysis is done with respect to understanding what are the competencies that this particular leader now requires to bring about a delta in the team that he or she is managing. Therefore, an intentional process to produce transformation in the character and the competency of the leader himself or herself, and that would then increase their ability to influence people. After all, a leader doesn't really have a magical pill. Does one have? No. What a leader is really required to do is to bring about change, to bring about action, to bring about influence, so that people who work along with her are able to drive out better productivity. And therefore, this is what I like to define leadership development as promptly said by MacLake. When we then move to understanding what is the purpose of leadership development, now the purpose could be, it is multidimensional. It is multi-year journeys which leaders are on. But if I bring your attention to the 3-tier process that I have put on the slide, it starts by optimizing the competence of this particular leader to effectively manage and influence teams. So that is the start point. That is the immediate action that needs to be taken, optimizing productivity of this leader. And why is that required? Well, there are many reasons. One of the reasons, and one of the most pertinent reason, as you can see in the second block, is organizing and synthesizing complex ideas into a compelling narrative. Now, I don't know what's your take on it, but as a coach, as an HR consultant, what I have realized and learned, the power and the skill of storytelling is so important, not just as a leader, but at any stage, at any role that you are playing in an organization. Now, when I say storytelling, I don't really want to leave you with an image of a teacher sitting in a classroom with little children, or probably a story that a father is telling a child. But if anything that moves a human is either a laughter or a tear. So the emotions need to come through. A leader needs to have the capability of drawing out simple yet compelling messages out of the huge complex data that he or she is managing, and bring it in those little nuggets for the teams that they handle. Now, Dr. Dhar was alluding to the current pandemic that we all are experiencing. Just try and imagine your role in your family at the moment. Now, your role could be that of a parent, it could be of a child, it could be of a sibling, it could be of a carer, whatever. Just try and remember when you had to break the news of lockdown to a little child. How did you explain it to that child? What does this lockdown really mean? What was it that took you to make that little child understand what can be done and cannot be done in a way that does not bring about fear, that does not bring about limitation, but brings in hope, brings in things which are in our own ability to do, even when our external environment becomes so constrained. And with the same memory, try and explode that particular experience on how a leader is then required to bring about all the complex informations which are thrown at leaders in this ambiguous, volatile world, day in, day out. How to synthesize all of that in a communication nugget, which is easy to understand. Okay. There was somebody calling, so I don't know if it was only me who heard it loud in my ears, but I've just disconnected that. So Ms. Arya, if you are the one who's taking care of the back-end logistics, could you just take control of that? Thank you. So yeah, so I was saying it's important to bring all that complex information into simple, compelling narrative. And then from there, move into the critical skill visioning process. Now, what is important for a leader is to kind of work on a 3-step journey whenever it comes to decision making, or whenever it comes to kind of, project management or any other skill that this leader is then deploying. What is important is to do 3 things. Firstly, as you see on the 3rd block, analyzing the past. So to the given situation, was there any precedence? Was there something that happened similarly in the past? And if yes, what were the learnings? What is it that was done differently? What came out of that outcome? Having that historical information in hand, moving on to understand what is the present that the person is now facing, and then understanding the options to work towards clear future vision. Again, try and analyze and try and understand this with the current pandemic situation. Now, when the pandemic started, none of us in the present generation had an idea, the present workforce, irrespective of which generation you are from, had any idea of what to do in the current situation. I mean, it was unprecedented, and it just kind of grew at a speed that we were not able to contain it. And therefore, no matter what country you were in, everyone went into a lockdown or a circuit breaker of sorts. But then what happened? As Dr. Dhar was talking yesterday, it's all about, it's an ideal change management theory, a 3-step thing where probably, you go through a decline and then you survive and then you thrive and then you rebuild. So basically understanding what the situation is, what's in our control, what isn't, what are our strengths, what we can work on, and what will put us back on a faster recovery track. Therefore, having that understanding and using that skill where you're able to vision and you're able to put a compelling narrative and you are able to influence the teams that you handle as a part of being a leader. And the purpose of leadership development is to work on all of these skills together on this one leader so that he or she can then sharpen his or her saw and become more effective and more productive at influencing and inspiring the team. So what are the deliverables of a leadership development process? Now, suppose you are a leader and you are now been taken into a leadership program. What is it that the organization would promise to give you as a part of this program, and what would be expected out of you as a leader? First and foremost, what would be worked upon is to bring about focus. In this unsettling environment where there are constantly different priorities which are being thrown at us, it becomes very difficult to stay focused. It becomes very difficult to have a short-term focus and a long-term vision. Therefore, what is expected as a part of a leadership development process is to condense all of that and bring clarity, bring focus to this leader so that this individual is then able to create that greater sense of clarity and focus for the teams that he or she takes care of. Second most important deliverable is communication. When we started, Dr. Shukla was complimenting Singapore and the Singaporean government on how they've been able to take care of the current pandemic, and they've been able to constrain and probably also take care of the situation really well. There was someone else who was trying to get into the call. Yes, so communication is so important, and it has come so handy for the Singaporean government. I am reminded of one of the speeches which the founding father of Singapore, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, gave PM Lee. He said this many years ago when he was asked that, sir, if you were the Prime Minister of India, would you be able to bring the transformation the way you have brought in for Singapore? And he outrightly, at the blink of an eyelid, said no. He said, I'm not going to be able to do that. And the primary reason was that the country has more than 5,000 languages. So how do you draw that common sense of purpose if you're not able to have a common line of communication? So for a leader, it's very... there's some Miss Rupali who's really trying to get into the call. So probably if someone could just send her an invite. Yeah, because I'm just kind of getting it in. Yeah, thank you. So it's really important for a leader to work on their communication capability. Yes, we do understand that there are different personality types. So we have introvert leaders and we have extrovert leaders. We have leaders who do not have high emotional intelligence, so on and so forth. But then what we have seen in the corporate, and with times to come, the learning is that the leaders who really will thrive in the world post-COVID, or for that matter, say the future of 2050, will be the leaders who have communication, and more so empathetic communication as a skill up their arsenal. So it's very important as a deliverable of a leadership development process to help leaders become crystal clear with their communication. The third point that you can see on the slide is prioritizing, planning, delegating. Of course, it kind of talks about the time management that needs to be worked upon. So a leader should have the capacity of working on his or her time management capabilities. Now, there are so many models out there. Again, as I said, I'm preaching to the academia here. So you are better judges in terms of what model to pick where, but then the classic urgent, important grid that we talk about in terms of time management. It's very important for leaders to understand whether they are clinging on to tasks out of their habit or their bias or their comfort zone, and therefore understanding which tasks need to be prioritized given the urgency and which needs to be kind of shelved out. The other thing that needs to then happen for a leader is once the clarity around the task prioritization has been established, how to plan execution. Now, one of the most important aspects of leadership is to know your team well. Understand what strengths do your team bring to the table. Now, just like the 5 fingers of our palm, no finger is same, and therefore the team that you handle, no single individual is same. We all know that. Having said that, a leader needs to have a clear sense of understanding of which task to be mapped on to which team member, given their competency, strength, motivation, ambition, and bigger vision. And of course, these conversations are not one-off conversations which leaders are required to have with their teams, because teams are not static. Teams change. People are not static. Their life cycle changes. So if you've had a team member who has stayed on with you for the last 5 years, probably this person joined in as a fresher from college, but now is married and has a child. Therefore, the needs of flexibility, the needs of probably some other support system from the organization might change. The motivation might change as well. So the leader needs to be cognizant of those facts and then have the ability of delegating and not becoming a helicopter leader or micromanaging. So all of that then needs to be kind of imparted as a clear deliverable of the process. The fourth point, as you can see it on the screen, it talks about rationalizing conflict. Now, a lot of us, if we were to kind of ask who really likes conflict, I'm sure going by the normal sessions that I run and these stats which I've seen post, that almost 98% of people would say we don't like conflict. We would really want it to be a peaceful situation for everyone, win-win, all of that. The role of a leader, again, one of the most important role is to bring about harmony. If there is harmony in the team that he or she is handling, that would lead to more stable situations, conducive environment for people, for the team to be productive. Therefore, it is important for this leader as a part of the development process to learn about different conflict resolution styles, to learn about different kinds of personalities, to have the cultural nuances in place if the person is taking care of, say, multinational teams and stuff like that. Therefore, conflict is not to be seen as something negative. Conflict is only someone telling you, I don't understand what you're saying, therefore I don't buy in. It doesn't mean I don't respect you. It simply means I have my own point of view. Could we have a discussion? And the role of the leader here is to facilitate conversations, is to cut down those barriers and help in the productivity of the team. And lastly, as I was saying, that one of the most important role of a leader is to inspire and motivate. If I could leave you with a visual that's really close to my heart when I think of a leader, is one of being a catalyst. A leader has to be someone like a catalyst who is bringing about the humongous chemical reaction where every single individual in his or her team is getting charged up to give in their best. Just think about the current situation we are working in. I mean, some 60 odd people who've logged into the call. Probably somebody is logging in from their homes with a young child at the background crying. Probably someone has logged in from home and someone needs help in terms of the room that they're using or whatever. I mean, these are real-time challenges. These are challenges that we will continue to face for some time because we were not ready for it. We were not ready for infrastructural constraints that would be thrown at us when working from home became a reality. A leader needs to be cognizant. A leader needs to empathize. A leader needs to come down to the level of the team member to understand where he or she is operating out of, and then find a way to inspire and motivate. And at times, motivation probably might just last a couple of hours, and that's okay. Because, and I'm sure, while I should not be making an assumption, but I would just probably want to make one, that a lot of us have been talking about mental well-being of late. A lot of us have been talking about how important it is to go out and seek opinions when people are quiet, how important it is to go out after the silent ones, because most of the times probably they are sitting with the most creative ideas. Therefore, one of the most important deliverable, point 5 on the slide that you see, is to be inspiring and motivating. Now, having looked at what are the deliverables of a leadership development process, let's look at the next slide, which is about what is executive coaching. Now, of course, you can read what is there on the slide, but I would want to say that coaching came off at the end. Coaching came at it came towards the end of 1990s. And when it came in, it actually came in as business coaching. So business coaching was really or rather it was at 2 levels. It was business and it was personal. So either you were getting into a business mode of coaching, and almost 90% of that was sports coaching, and the other bit was personal coaching. And over the years, it has evolved and it has taken different shape and sizes. A lot of corporates globally are now looking at in-house coaches. That's in fact going to be one of the new roles that most of the organizations will have post this pandemic as well, where they would want to have their own in-house coach who's actually coaching their workforce across different array of topics. Yes, we do have employee help group and stuff like that, which most of the organizations have today, but they are more on the lines of counseling. So let me just take you through what I have on the slide, and then I'll build on what I said. Now, all of you would be surprised, and you've read it already, that there are over 30 different psychological approaches to coaching, and therefore it's quite complex. And it leads to some of the popular misconceptions around so what really is coaching. Now, let me look at what you have already read in terms of what coaching isn't. So coaching is not about fixing people. There's no one broken, really. So you're not fixing people. You're not telling people. So you don't really have to go and tell somebody what to do, because it's not a relationship between a parent and a child. It's not a relationship between a superior and an inferior. Coaching is about equals. Coaching is not about advising. So when we look at something called as pure coaching, in pure coaching, which is again, one of the very important wing of ICF accreditation. So pure coaching is where the coach does not utter a single word of advice while in a coaching conversation with the coachee. So coaching clearly is not fixing, it's not telling, it's not advising. A coach would not know some or maybe all of the answers. I mean, if I was to ask this group right now, who is the coach of Sachin Tendulkar, probably only the cricket buffs would know his name, but rest all of us who know Sachin Tendulkar would still not know his coach, Mr. Ramesh. And most of us probably would not even know that the coach was never a cricketer himself. So he never really actively played the sport. So what does that beautifully lead and link to my second question here? My second point here is that a coach is not expected to know answers. A coach is not sitting with a panacea to kind of know it all. A coach is merely sitting with strong coaching tools and process for the coachee to find the answers for himself or herself. And I would also want to bring about this. Coaching is not about performance management. So coaching is not about dealing with poor performers, coaching or poor performers alone. Coaching is not a way of reprimanding. Coaching is not a way of shaming. A lot of my clients that I'm coaching currently, I mean, they are high potential talent of the organizations that they are working with. They are already operating at a given level of productivity that is so expected out of them. And then one may ask, oh, if they're already doing so well, then why do they need coaching? Well, I would say, what is it that executive coaching has to offer? Now, before I look into that, I just have this slide, which is coaching versus therapy. Now, a lot of people kind of link coaching with therapy, coaching with counseling, coaching with mentorship, coaching with sponsorship. All of these are different things. Now, on this slide, it's specifically talking about coaching versus therapy. So coaching is always about looking ahead. It does not dwell in the past. It is not about sitting and looking into historic data of, what has happened and what was the abuse or what was the underproductivity or what were the conflicts. No, it is only forward looking, establishing the goal and looking forward in terms of the mechanism to reach to that goal. The client is the expert and not the coach. As I said, coaching is a relationship of equals, where the coachee is in the driving seat and the coachee or the client is the expert. Now, coaching client doesn't need fixing, and this is very important. So unlike therapy, where probably the patient requires remedy, treatments, or other procedures, in coaching, you don't have to be sick to be seeing a coach. You don't have to be underproductive to be seeing a coach. You don't have to be put on a PIP, which is performance improvement plan, to see a coach. Therapy, as we all know historically, could take a very long time in terms of the individual to resolve their internal conflicts and other aspects that they are dealing with. Whereas coaching can help with results that are swift and dramatic. Now, dramatic not in terms of smoke and glasses and mirrors, not really that, but dramatic in terms of connecting the coachee with their own internal wisdom well. I remember one of my biggest takeaway from Dr. Dhar's session yesterday was that the differentiator for people post-COVID would be, between someone who's performing really well and one who's not, will be how well are they connected to their wisdom? How well are they connected to their learnings and then applying their wisdom to the situation? And that is exactly the dramatic part of coaching results, because the coachee is able to look within for the wisdom that's required for that specific situation. Now, what is it that an executive coach does? So if I was to kind of talk to you about what do I do with my clients when I'm in a coaching conversation, well, I think if I was to sum it up, well, yeah, in a way, spider web, the way you are making it, but it's more structured. So what I would do is I would provide a confidential thinking space. Now, when there are two people who've come together in part of being a coach and a coachee and they're equals, the coach's job is to provide a confidential thinking space by doing what? Firstly, by listening. So if the spiderweb gentleman or gentle lady is listening, probably you don't make any more spider webs on the screen. So this is an example where people don't listen. And that's not what an executive coach does. An executive coach listens and listens intently to know what is it that the coach, that the coachee wants to share.
Chhaya madam, you can use as annotation. View option, go to view option, and you can activate the annotation. Annotation is there.
All right, that's just fine. I might just spend about 5 minutes doing that, so it's all right. I'll live with the cobwebs, Dr. Shukla. It's all good. That was just to pick up an example. That's all good. Yeah. So first was, of course, to listen intently. The second is to ask questions. Now, again, my biggest take on coaching and something that keeps me so excited about coaching is the magic of using questions. And as I said right in the beginning, no question is a stupid question, only answers can be. There are some there are some groundbreaking transformational questions that could be asked to put a person in a complete deep thinking zone where a person is able to kind of break away his or her own shackles and come up with the best solution that works for him or her in the given situation. So it's very important for an executive coach to ask the right question. The coach is also in a position where he or she should be able to help their clients to mobilize their resources. Now, the resources could be in terms of the network, the resources could be in terms of the tangible resources in terms of funds that they're sitting with, probably in terms of people who can support them with their dreams and their businesses, people who can support them with the strategy that they want to execute, so on and so forth. So helping the coachee to be in a power space. So most of the clients, when I start my coaching conversation with them, most of the clients start their coaching goals from a powerless space. Now, when I say powerless, some examples could be, I don't think I'm working optimally at my job, or probably I sit with this fear of becoming redundant, or maybe with the current situation around me, I'm not sure when will all of this come to an end and I will come back to the normal that I was used to. So normally people start from a powerless space, and the job of the coach is to pull them out from that inertia to a space where they feel in power. Because only when you feel in power is when you take control and you take charge of what you already have in terms of resources, support, knowledge, wisdom, and then mobilize that towards your bigger goals. You are not dealing with a child here. You are dealing with an adult, and an adult who's capable of solving their own problem. And that is what a coach needs to remember at all points in time. Spoon feeding or looking out for solutions for somebody is not done in a pure coaching session. Now, there are different kinds of coaching, as I said, that have evolved over the years. There is something called as blended coaching. Now, globally, some people are paying truckloads of money when it comes to coaching conversations. And most of the times people walk into a coaching conversation thinking, if I'm paying you this much money, you should be the one telling me the solution. But that's not how it works. However, in some of the blended coaching conversations, a coach might bring about a list of possible solutions and then help the coachee go through the pros and cons and all kind of decision tree mechanisms to kind of zero down on the optimum approach. But if you talk about pure coaching, all these coachees have to solve their problems on their own. And of course, the end result is what? The end result is the last point, as you see, which is to achieve their goals at the end of the coaching contract. Now, as a coach, what is really important between the coach and the coachee is to establish a coaching contract. Now, all of us know this, what gets measured gets done. So only if you are measuring the path that you have taken towards the goal and you have a clear sight of what that goal would look like. So whether it is productivity, whether it is increasing motivation, whether it is about having clear lines of communication, or whether it is having better employee engagement, no matter what stream of organizational COE you are looking at, having clear sight and having clear measures and metrics in place will help you achieve it. Now, what I've done at the bottom is basically to show you, show you the support and the challenges that a coach normally offers to the client. So when I'm in a coaching conversation with my client, my job is to provide support. Now, support, of course, would be, as I said, providing the confidential thinking space. Also being in a space where I am, it would be wrong to say that I'm free of all biases, but I would be in a space of not coming in with any judgment. And of course, throwing challenges when the coachee says, but I don't know what I can do. So for example, I was in a coaching conversation with somebody this morning, and this person is currently struggling. He's a virtual leader sitting out of Denmark, and he's struggling with his global teams, which are all across Asia, Europe, China. And his struggle is that for the last, 2.5 months, he is only looking at them virtually he is not able to travel anymore. Earlier, he used to make monthly trips to all his virtual locations to kind of have that kind of time that he was spending with his team. And he told me this morning that I'm already seeing trust issues. I'm already seeing a lack of morale, and I really don't know what to do. And of course, I got in my coach position and I was like, this is no child. He should know his own answers. So I then asked him, so what is it that you can do about it? And he just, we were doing a web call and he looked at me and he said, I don't know. And that's why I'm talking to you. And I said, and the coaching technique that we then use there is to soften our communication style, and then to make it easy for the coachee to visualize possibilities. And then I asked him that while I appreciate how difficult it is, what is it that you could possibly do in a situation that you are now facing? So all of these are tips and tricks and different hats that we wear as coaches to kind of throw challenges and also bring about support to our coachee while in a coaching conversation. Now, as you see on that little graph there, if I'm just giving support to my coachee and not giving him or her any challenge, and I'm like, oh, I understand it's very difficult for you and you will not be able to travel, so probably we can just wait till the time the markets get better and we get a vaccine and you can travel, and then probably your team will feel better. So that is something called as the cozy club, where I'm just giving support to this coachee and not really making this person think out of the comfort zone. And working on a coaching club or a cozy club doesn't help anyone. Well, I might still get my paycheck from the organization for the coaching hour that I'm clocking, but I'm not being true to this coachee who really needs to work on a solution. Similarly, if I'm only throwing challenges at my coachee and not giving any support, by saying things like, what if the morale of your team comes down by 10% in the engagement survey for the year? What if you lose your position or a credible position as a leader in the organization? What if your sponsors on the management team don't think that you are worthy of being a leader anymore? So what I'm then doing is I'm just throwing these close-ended questions of challenges at my coachee without supporting him or her at all. And if I do that, I'm just building up a stressful environment, and that doesn't help. So what is the optimum best is what you see highlighted in yellow, which is high performance. So the job of an executive coach as a part of leadership development is to provide the optimum support and the optimum challenges where this individual is able to look at his or her goals, current challenges that they're facing, and the possible solutions that they would want to work on. Now, so that is what an executive coach does. Now, I'm being typically asked that is executive coaching really worth the investment? Is it really going to stay after the pandemic? Will I really sustain as a consultant? Let me tell you that executive coaching normally gives back a return on investment on 5 to 7%. I've written 6 times, 5 to 7 times. I've written 6 times on my slide here to take an average. So if a company was to kind of pay $1,000, I'm just saying 1,000 rupees on somebody's coaching session, 1 hour, say, the yield that comes back in terms of productivity of the team, productivity of the revenues that are being generated, the engagement, the morale, the retention of talent, all of that is a bare minimum of at least 6 times of the investment that the company is making. And yes, coaching is going to stay even beyond the current COVID that we are facing, because look around you, there is so much unsettlement that's all around us. There is a lot of, I would say, people are looking for clarity. People are looking at how to tackle the vulnerability that they sit within and around them. And coaching, while here I'm talking about executive coaching, there are different kinds of coaching, which Dr. Dhar was alluding to earlier. So there is life coaching, there is spiritual coaching, there's business coaching, there's non-profit coaching, there's entrepreneurial coaching. So there are different strands of coaching, and coaching is here to stay, because coaching is not therapy. Coaching is not done only when you are sick. Coaching is done to help people reach greater potential of what they are capable of doing by finding wisdom which is deep within them. Having said that, let me now look at pertinently into the role of executive coaching in leadership development. Now, coaching is a science and an art. Now, why do I say that? Because, of course, there are a lot of processes that we as coaches work on, depending on what's the goal that the coachee has come in for, what is the personality type, what is the maturity level that this individual has, how senior is this person in the organization. Depending on that, the science of picking up the right process, and of course, an art of delivering that process via communication, relationship building. All of that is used as a part of coaching. It's transformative because that is what is the end result expected. No coaching program happens where organizations or coaches or coachees would want to stay status quo. Coaching happens because people want to change. Coaching happens because people want to see results differently from what they are looking at currently. And it's inquiry based. So it comes in with an intention to help. It comes in with an intention to partner. It does not come with an intention to shame somebody or to probably pass judgment. And therefore, that is what's important about coaching. Now, this is something I really like, and that's why I've put it here. For me, the way I see it, I really see that coaching is quite like alchemy. Now, for those of you who don't understand what alchemy is, I've kind of put the definition here. So alchemy is the term that is used for the ancient science of chemical transformation. The deeper and the longer you explore, the more magnificent is the treasure trove. I've had some clients that I'm kind of coaching, and I've kind of been with them in a coaching conversation over a period of 24 months. And I must admit the joy of transformation, the joy of seeing someone become more wiser, become more in control, become more visionary is just beyond words to be shared on the platform right now. So what is it that executive coaching does for leadership development is to help connect the dots. Now, what are those dots? It is for the leader to think and therefore be aware. Now, whether it is the current situation or whether it's any other situation that's going to be in the future, I think what's really important for a leader is to be aware of what's happening around her or him. You know, so if you talk of a typical corporate setup, what is happening on the financial side of the organization? What is happening on the market side of the organization? What is happening on the procurement side of the organization? What is happening on the people side of the organization? And only when you are aware of the different drivers that you're working with is when you can think and when you can become more rational in your approach. What also coaching does for leadership development is to bring about a process of visualization. So we as coaches, we run a lot of visualization activity, and I'm sure some of you would have either gone through or probably as behavioral trainers and coaches would be aware of it, or psychology experts sitting in the audience right now. So because we go through processes where coaches are taken through visualization, when they see it as a possibility, they believe in it. So when someone sees that he or she is thriving in a period post-COVID, when that becomes a visual, it becomes an easier goal to work towards in terms of steps that need to be put in place to get there. And once you know what the goal is, it's easier to plan. Once you have the plan, it's easier to act. So you're kind of breaking all of this down. And when you know what your actions have to be, you are able to decide what you want to do, and therefore you own it up. I mean, one of the most important things that I learned as a business management student was, while responsibilities and empowerment will be given to you, what is really important is accountability. Accountability is the driving force for high performance. Only when I own up what I'm required to deliver as a leader is when I would become highly effective and productive. And of course, the last point that you see is learn and hence celebrate. I think this has been my biggest learning of the current pandemic. We are so busy running after the extraordinary, creating the extraordinary, that we have stopped looking at the ordinary, that we have stopped celebrating the ordinary. I think what's important is that while we marvel at the extraordinaries around us, it's very important to be thankful, to be grateful, to be joyous, and to celebrate the ordinary. Probably the ordinary of where the people in your organization, whether it's your university or whether it's a corporate, where people come and they spend quality time. And it doesn't have to be like hours that you spend on the coffee machine, but a simple visual chat like this, where a colleague of yours is touching base with you to see if you are doing okay, if there is something that this person has or can offer. Simple humane acts, simple ordinary acts can actually lead to a lot of long and far-stretching productive means, and therefore we should celebrate more. With so much of morbidity and so much of sadness around us at the moment, we really need to celebrate more. We really need to feel grateful and happy for what we truly have. Now, with this, I would then want to move into the next part of it, which is this one, yeah, which is then to understand what is the brain science perspective of coaching. So while I said it is a science, now coaching journey is like a great microcosm. And why I say that is because it's able to kind of go through different facets of the human brain. And what I have experienced as a coach is that, a coaching process can take a coachee onto a simulation and a stimulation both. Now when I say simulator and stimulator, what it means is that while you are in a coaching conversation, whether executive or any other, while you are doing that, you are tapping as a coach, you are tapping into the conscious mind of your coachee, which is the part of the brain that gets involved and engaged during thinking, taking decisions, ideating, etc. And then also the unconscious, which is the habit formation, auto mode, etc. Now, examples of how coaching simulates, as you can see on the slide, is real life scenarios through visioning and thinking process, experience of success, learning and rising from failure, contingency planning, navigating the unknown, and all of these can be taken as potential resources that will come out of coaching in the current pandemic and even after that. That if all of us as a race were to go through such uncertainty and such vulnerability, how could coaching bring about simulations to help people problem solve? And of course, it stimulates because we are able to think, we are able to make decisions, ideate, bring more clarity, introspect, be aware and curious. So that is how the brain science perspective of coaching or executive coaching plays importance in leadership development. And now from that, I would want to make my shift into why coaching is the new alchemy. So why is coaching here to stay? Well, coaching is here to stay because it kind of starts with the belief in the innate human potential. It has the process and the toolkit to provide deep experiential learning to the coachee. There is powerful and design thinking technique. I mean, design thinking has become the new nuance. And that is how we are operating today in all modes of COEs and organizations. So how do you bring about humane design thinking in the way you are innovating, in the way you are resolving conflict, in the way you are making products, etc. And then, of course, optimism, belief, and neutrality is at the core of the coaching process. Therefore, coaching for sure is here to stay. Now, moving on to how does one make the shift? How is the shift made as a part of coaching from dilemma to progress? Now, here I would just want to kind of talk about some of the questions which have to be established, and that will give you a sense of how a coachee moves from, from that paralysis of not making a decision or not making an action and then moving into progress. So the first thing for the coach is to really understand what would really trigger a client or a leader or an executive to make the shift. Is it really the organizational culture? Is it really the organizational strategy? Or is it the deep-rooted motivation that this person sits with that will bring about the trigger? So that needs to be established. Second, as you see, is what needs to be true for the coachee to take the first step it's normally, usually the first step, whether it is to come out of your, your hot blanket on a cold, wintry morning, or whether it is to kind of do, do the jump out of the plane if you're doing skydiving, or whether it is to put your signature against a contract that you're signing for an organization. It is that first step. So what needs to be true for this coachee to take the plunge? The third question, as you see, is what feelings are experienced by the coachee and about being authentic around self-discovery and awareness. A lot of us are not comfortable, and we don't say this outright, but a lot of us are not comfortable with some dark side of our personality, or probably something of our inner theater that we have been holding on for years. So it's important for the coach and a coachee to be in a situation, or to be on a common ground where the coachee is willing to share the experiences of, or the feelings of how he or she feels when they become in touch with that part of self-discovery. And of course, as you see, lastly, what does the transformational state look like in a post-action when something new has been done? So it's like you've injected yourself with a drug and you're all high on adrenaline, but then having said that, what needs to change to kind of keep that continuum on? So what needs to continuously happen for this coachee to not let go of the action that has been taken and probably move towards making it a habit? Some of the prerequisites which are required between a coach and a coachee to establish a productive executive coaching process, of course, is to have an amiable and reciprocal coach and coachee chemistry. Now, what I mean by that is it needs to be respectful. It needs to be that of equals. The environment needs to be congruent, objective, and authentic. So there should be no bias, no judgment. There needs to be a structure. Belief and trust is the core. Again, alluding to what Dr. Dhar was saying yesterday, that trust is going to evolve as a very important value for most of the organizations, whether corporate or non-profit, in terms of value that's going to change post the pandemic. In fact, Dr. Shukla and I were talking earlier, and we said that now if one was to look at conducting examinations online where students were to sit at home and write their papers, trust for sure is going to be at the forego, and the relationship with trust and how will that work. And I think most importantly, the last point that you see is power of self-belief. And that is where the coachee then comes in the driving seat. And the coachee truly comes and connect with the innate wisdom well that he or she sits with, and comes in a control position where they can then work on possible solutions to work on their own problems. So that is how we move from a dilemma stage to a progress stage. Now, this is quite a crowded diagram that I'm leaving you with, but if you just look at the different colors and different things that you see there, I would want you to zoom into the center purple box with the yellow font color on it that says desire to change is greater than desire to remain as is. And if I was to leave you with one mantra of how executive coaching will continue to work, this is the one. So if coaching done right, irrespective of what are you coaching on, is it the current pandemic, is it what's going to be life after that, or whatever, if the coach is able to create a feeling, or is able to create an environment, or is able to create an attitude where the coachee feels that the desire to change for him or her is greater than the desire to remain as is, the magic has already started. And thereon, goal setting, action plan, measures and metrics come into play. So this slide normally leaves you with what are the dilemmas that the client would face, and what are the aha moments that the coach kind of goes through as a part of the process. Now, I'm aware of the time, and I'm just going to leave you with this toolkit, and post this, I would want to open the Q&A so that we are able to kind of bring about a more constructive dialogue. So this is normally the toolkit. It's just a sneak peek of some of the questions that I use for my clients, and I would love to leave these with you so that you can take it back and probably use it on yourself, on your family members. Honestly, don't use it with family, but then you could use it with friends or colleagues, but yes, you can. So for example, what is the deeper truth here? So when you're saying what is the deeper truth here, here is the goal that you're trying to establish. If you were totally free, who would you be? So if I was to ask all 60 something of us sitting on this webinar right now, if you were totally free and there was no fear in your mind in terms of getting expelled from your college or probably losing your job, would you still be on this call listening to what has been said? And if your answer is yes, which I'm crossing my fingers to be, then you know that you're doing the right investment of the time that you have put in to be here. So similarly, there are other questions that you can read for yourself, which are here on the slide, and later I would send it out to Dr. Shukla, and he could send out to anyone who's interested to have a copy of these questions. So kind of bringing all of this together as we move into an open house, I have spoken to you about what leadership development looks like, what are the different expectations or purpose of a leadership program when it's been run in a corporate or otherwise, what is executive coaching, how is it different from therapy, why executive coaching is here to stay, how could it help us in the current pandemic and otherwise, how is it an alchemy and how is it something that's going to happen, the new wave of working, the new wave of living now and beyond. And of course, there are some questions that I would love to leave you with in terms of pertinent, powerful coaching questions that you may choose to use with whosoever that you want. Having said that, I would want to take a pause and open the floor for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Chhaya madam. It was a very nice presentation. One question, I think this from a student side. Coaching is similar to mentoring. The question is that, is the coaching is similar to mentoring?
Thank you for asking that question. So let me kind of tell you in a corporate parlance, and of course there are many more, but then there are different terms which are being used interchangeably. So people talk about mentoring, they talk about sponsorship, they talk about coaching, they talk about counseling. So let's try and understand this, and I'm putting this out in a very laymannish way. I know there are experts sitting here who could give you great definitions, but in a very laymannish way, counseling is simply a process where someone comes to a counselor for counsel, which means for advice. So there is a problem which is being discussed and a solution is being offered by the counselor. It could be a one-time activity, or probably it could have a series of engagement that the person might have to go through. Coming up to mentorship. Now, mentorship is a process where there is a mentor and a mentee. The mentor has established credibility in the area where the mentee is seeking guidance. So the mentor should be a credible body. Now, for example, if somebody was to talk about, say, management studies, one would look up to your esteemed vice chancellor and probably look at him as a guru and come to him in the mentor space. That's what I remember Dr. Mandal was referring to Dr. Dhar as his mentor yesterday, or probably mentor for everybody. So a mentor is someone who is an established, credible individual. The mentee comes in and there is a relationship which is created. It is not a one conversation relationship, but it is a relationship which is woven over months and years, where the mentee is able to learn from the experiences of the mentor. Now, coming to coaching, as I explained in the beginning, coaching, the coach needn't be an expert. The coach needn't have the answers. The coach will not solve your problems. The coach will simply take the coachee through a process which will help the coachee get into a zone of connecting with his or her inner potential, inner wisdom, and bring about solutions that will work in the goal that has been established. It could be a one-on-one coaching. It could also be a group coaching. There are different forms of coaching: executive, life, spiritual, so on and so forth. And lastly, sponsorship. Now, sponsorship, the way it's kind of defined in the corporate is, a sponsor is someone who's got their skin in the game. A sponsor is someone who would talk for you when you are not present in the room. So for example, there is a career discussion happening or a promotion discussion happening, and the person is not in the room. Who in that room who's influential enough decides to become a sponsor for this person? So, you know, when somebody stands up and says, oh, I think Mr. X is perfect for this job because she has shown all the qualities required and she should be the one promoted. right? So this person then becomes the sponsor who's talking and taking, if I may say, guarantee for somebody's potential. So these are terms which sadly are taken or kind of used interchangeably, but they are different processes and mechanism. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Manisha, madam, you can take the questions. Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, the first question is by Dr. Yogita. What changing and challenging role a leader will have to perform post-COVID or during the transition phase?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Yogita. I think first and foremost, the biggest challenge for a leader would be to come in a state of self-awareness. Now, a leader is not a superhuman being. A leader is not someone who's standing on a podium next to God. A leader is someone who is expected to have far more chiseled skills and experience that can help people who are working along with her or him. Now, the first stage for this leader will be to get into a space of self-awareness. How is he or she dealing with the situation? Does he or she have the right support system in place? Do they have the right resources in place? Do they have the right network in place? Having established all of that for himself or herself, and again, understand, this is not selfishly, but this is for the greater good of the team that he or she manages. Moving on from self-awareness would come a situation of diagnosis. And diagnosis would mean, where is a team right now? The team right now in terms of their morale, the team right now in terms of the infrastructure, the team right now in terms of the support that they are getting, and then linking that on to where is the organization. Again, I'm kind of alluding to the webinar yesterday, and simply the reason is that I'm assuming that most of you would have, and you were able to link to the learning that you had yesterday. So of the 11 measures of HRM that were kind of shared by the speaker yesterday, he did mention that, Dr. Dhar mentioned that most of the businesses will close down permanently. Now, if that is the situation, what is a leader supposed to do? A leader would not have a job anymore, right? So what is then important? In a way, I know I'm talking to all students in academia here, so I can probably give you an analogy of Maslow's theory. So some way connecting it to Maslow's again. So kind of making sure that the basics are in place. You are aware of what is happening. You are establishing your resources and your support network. You are reaching out to people and you're giving them clear, concise communication. And sometimes less is more. Sometimes you just have to go out there and probably just say one statement that will reassure and bring confidence back. So bringing all these nuggets, whether right now in the pandemic or even later, there are other things that we talk about when we talk about the global setup. We talk about cross-cultural teams. We talk about virtual and in-house teams. We talk about different diversity segments like LGBT, disability, all of that. So a leader needs to be cognizant of all these aspects, become aware, and make the right strategy to reach out to different teams and individuals that he or she is managing. I hope that helps, Dr. Yogita.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I thought Dr. Priyam has raised the hand some questions. If Dr. Priyam is here, if any question, you can unmute yourself and ask.
It is also in chat box. Yeah, Priyam.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. It was a very nice session. I just want to ask that whether the coaching techniques or the coaching style, whatever it is, which we have discussed, does they differ according to different sectors of industries? And if yes, then what would be the coaching styles or coaching techniques for manufacturing sector, especially in the rise of Make in India movement post-COVID?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Priyam. And I must say, I always, as a diversity professional, I always feel happy when a lady comes up and she's asking the question and not being asked to look at the chat box. Yes, that's the bias that I work with. But thank you for the question, Priyam. So to answer your question, the techniques, of course, are different. the processes are different. We have different toolkits. Now, when I say they're different, if a coachee is coming in with a goal to make a decision, we would use a process that will facilitate decision-making process. If somebody is coming in with, I want to find my purpose, we would use a process that is used for purpose finding. If somebody is coming in with a self-limiting belief, or probably a trauma that a person has gone through, either at the emotional or whatever level, we would use a different process completely. Now, I'll be honest here, and I would say that I'm not completely in sync with the manufacturing or the movement that you're talking about. But I would say, again, a coach is not required to know all the answers. The technique comes up handy the minute you start establishing the goal. So when you are sitting with the coachee on the other side of the table, irrespective of what sector this person comes from, first and foremost, a coaching contract needs to be established. The coaching contract would detail out things like, what is the goal of this coaching conversation? What needs to be true in terms of success once the coaching comes to an end? What are the actions that this person would like to take once this coaching conversation is kind of concluded? And of course, for the coach to establish, why is this goal so important? Now, at times, Priyam, and this is coming out of experience, I would talk to people and they would say, let me take this example, it's very recent. I was talking to somebody who has been tutoring students for the last 10 years. So she's not a qualified teacher. She hasn't done her education and teaching, but she's been tutoring science and math to IB level students here in Singapore for the last 10 years. And now she wants to do an educational degree in the education space from a reputable institute, so that she's able to get herself a job at the end of completing that course. Now, at the time when I was trying to establish the contract with her, I tried to deepen the value of why she wanted to go in for that course. Trust me, nothing around the service of education or the act of service or the joy of teaching surfaced. What surfaced was, I want to have a backup plan if I have to look for a job tomorrow. So what is important is to really deep dive, to drill to the core of what is it that the coachee really wants to work on, and then bring out the right technique from your toolkit as a coach to the appropriate situation. So I believe to the moment or the movement that you're talking about, there will be appropriate techniques that could be used, generic and specific as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I would like to know next call. Miss Anjali is also having some query. Anjali, ma'am, you can.
Yeah, thank you, Manisha. First of all, a very good afternoon, ma'am. It is really a very wonderful session. And my question is the person who coaches, is it something an inborn characteristic or can it be learned? And if yes, if it can be learned, what qualities a coach possesses, an effective coach possesses?
Thank you, Anjali, and thank you for your kind words. I'm glad you enjoyed the session, and I hope that I'm able to make you gladder by answering your question. So it's going to be my take. Again, there are experts sitting here on the panel who might say whether a talent is inbuilt or a talent can be developed. But for me, I think coaching as a skill, just like any other muscle in your body, can be worked, can be toned up, can be chiseled, can be excelled. So coaching, yes, can be gained as a skill that you would want to work on. And all of us are coaches, in whatever walk of life that we are. While we may not really kind of be a coach, we might be telling most of the time or advising most of the time or taking decisions for others or giving them solutions. But I think the technique per se can be learned. The other things which probably comes more handy if someone is naturally gifted in terms of probably being emotionally intelligent, or probably someone who is more empathetic, or probably someone who is a good listener. Now, again, having said this, I think I have learned over my experience that coaching as skills can surely be learned. Other behavioral aspects can also be worked on. And, there was this coaching guru that I met long ago, almost a decade ago. And this person told me, just like anything else in life, Chhaya, you fake it till you make it, So even if you're a duck who's looking all calm and poised at the top of the water, but you're pedaling ferociously under the waters, it's important to kind of be out there, put yourself out of your comfort zone as a coach, and be authentic, be genuine, because after all, there's no pressure, because you are not required to know all answers. What you're required to do is to build on your skill of listening, to use your intellect and experience of using the right process and giving the right space, respect, and trust to your coaching. So I would just say it is something that anyone and everyone can learn with practice.
Ma'am, the last question is from YouTube. What is the difference between persona?
Could you kindly repeat that, the difference between?
Personality and persona.
Personality and persona. All right, now I may not be able to give you the Oxford definition here, and I'm happy for any other expert to kind of chip in. But personality are basically the traits. They are basically the skills that are inherent to the individual, to the person that you are. Some of them are visible in terms of how you look and your dimensions as an individual. And persona to me is the intangible around it. The persona is around, just to kind of give you some intangibles, would be in terms of the energy that you create, in terms of the aura that you have, in terms of the command that you're able to bring about by your presence. So persona for me is more around, if I may use, and I'm again throwing a jargon, I'm aware of that, it's more around your executive presence, whereas personality is more around your traits. It's more around your characteristics, some of which you are born with and some of which you imbibe from your experiences and your environment as you grow and learn.
I think,
and I'm looking at the experts here to answer.
Yeah, Professor Dhar can add. Yes, sir.
Yeah, persona is a Latin word which means mask, and the word personality has been drawn from persona. And personality refers to the sum total of the characteristics that an individual possesses. So persona is simply a word in Latin and which means mask. And from that, personality has been drawn. The concept has been drawn. This is the difference.
Thank you so much, sir.
And we've just done a real-time example of how coaching does not require the coach to know all the answers.
So now I cannot see any more questions.
Yeah, YouTube, you can
yes,
take questions.
YouTube ke le liye, sir.
Okay, please.
One more addition I would make. Chhaya has very well presented the executive coaching and its role in leadership development very well. I must compliment her for a very good presentation. One addition I would make, while differentiating between various HRD mechanisms, somebody had asked the question, difference between mentoring and coaching and so on. Only one addition is that counseling is never advising. Counseling is always a helping relationship. So it is always the counselor tries to help the counselee. It's a helping relationship. Whereas in consultation, it is advising. Consultation is always advising. A consultant advises, but a counselor helps. So counseling is a helping relationship. And rest of the distinctions that she has made, that is very correct. The difference between mental and generally people confuse. They are not able to differentiate between mentor and the coach. But she has very well differentiated them. They are different processes. They are not the same. And she has done it well, so I need not to repeat. Only this one, that for counseling, we should always say it's a helping relationship. And yes, when we talk about the consultative relationship or consultation, there comes in advising. So consultant advises. Rest, she has done very effective, very good presentation. It is more an experience based. She has been practicing this executive coaching. So I would congratulate her for this very beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Chhaya, I have a point.
Yeah, Mandal sir, please.
Sorry, sir.
Is my voice clear with the mask on?
Yeah, clear.
बात को हटाइए.
सर आपके
This is what means persona.
आपके ऑफिस में बैठा हूँ. Okay. Yeah, Chhaya, actually, we have been, when I was working in industry, we have been exposing our leadership talent through executive coaching. But the principle we were following was what was given by Marcel Goldsmith. That you make effective people more effective with coaching. You don't invest, on people who are difficult to coach and difficult to give this thing. Where the upside is high. Pick up only those guys for coaching. Now, somehow in the process, this question did bother me again and again as to then are we living out an unknown bunch who also could have been, better. Perhaps the return on investment might be on a lower side. Did we do a mistake? I wanted you to comment on that with your, rich experience in coaching.
Sure, Dr. Mandal. And as I attempt to answer that brilliant question, a quick thank you to Dr. Dhar for all the kind words. Dr. Mandal, you are correct in saying in terms of if we were to kind of look back a couple of decades in terms of how coaching was used, not just for high performing talent, but also for performance improvement plans, and probably also for people who were not really taken, as a part of the bell curve, they were taken to be high performers. And your question is quite pertinent. Will people lose out? Will people lose out because they're not high performers? Will they not get the resource? And unfortunately, the times that we are sailing in, organizations would want to get the maximum out of the buck that they're putting on interventions like coaching. And coaching, you will be aware coming from the corporate sector, and others would be as well, that coaching is a premium product, especially when it is used for executives. Now, if it was to be used as a retention tool, then it is for the organization and the talent management teams to look how they are cutting out the talent for the organization. So what are the performance metrics that they're putting in place, right? Now, for example, if I was to talk to you about Lego, in Lego, and Lego is a Danish company which makes toys. It's a family-owned business, and the only family-owned business in the world, one of them, who have been able to kind of sustain 100% ownership for 80 plus years now. And for a company like that, which truly believes in its people, when I joined Lego, and I joined Lego from Standard Chartered, which is like a commercial bank and an MNC and all of that, it was a complete contrast of culture. So Standard Chartered was a company that had talent programs for everyone. It was a company that said talent is everyone. It had, dollar per person budgeted in terms of development, learning, coaching, mentoring, etc. But when I came into Lego, what I saw was that out of the total 10,000 workforce that they had, the focus of learning and coaching was only on the top 2,000. And the cream of the programs were only going to the top 200, because that's how they defined leadership. For them, leaders were everything. For them, the leaders of Lego were going to the IMD University in Switzerland, where the per person spend per annum was almost 30,000 Danish kroner. That was like crazy amount of money being put just after one person. And this person was getting a dedicated executive coach to help him or her on their executive journey. So to answer your question, Dr. Mandal, I would really say, if I was to sit and predict with my limited experience and grapevine and information and corporate life that I've been a part of, it will largely depend on the culture of the organization, on the learning mechanisms and strategy of the organization, on how they are now budgeting. Now, again, yesterday, Dr. Dhar did speak about retrenchment. He did speak about downsizing. All of us know every other day we are reading one company or another that's coming out with retrenchment plans. In a situation like this, where people are actually looking at living with reduced salary, living with no increments, we will have to be realistic in terms of where will all the money for coaching and learning go. And probably these are the times till we stabilize and economies rebound, where the ethical question of doing what is right will probably take a back seat, and doing what is right for business might take the front seat. That is entirely my view, my opinion. Happy for anyone else to pitch in, but that is my take on it, Dr. Mandal.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, one question is again from the YouTube from Geeta Jain. What are few of the tools or techniques that can be used for coaching?
Now, again, it depends, Ms. Geeta, thank you for the question. It really depends on what coaching are you talking about. As I mentioned, there are different kinds of coaching. If you're zooming into executive coaching, then as I mentioned, depending on what is the goal. So, for example, if a person is coming in with let me give an example of a process that I use. So, for example, a person is coming in with a decision-making goal. This individual is not sure about what portfolio to invest in with the limited resources he or she sits with, how to work on those portfolios, how to maximize returns on investment for whatever money is going to be invested in whatever project. What I normally use, if I can just give you an analogy, is a kite process. So if you know what a kite looks like, it's like, you know, two triangles coming together, and then the top part of the kite is actually that gives the thrust, and it kind of lets the kite fly. So the process is such where using effective questioning technique that we have in the process, I would want to learn from this coachee what are the constraints that this individual is sitting with on the decision that has to be made. What decision would this person take if those constraints were to be taken away? Is this person tuned in to the positive side or the positive intention of those constraints? What if this constraint was to help us? Like yesterday, we were talking about what if this pandemic is actually an opportunity and it is not a limitation? What if it's preparing our generation and our future generation for a more volatile world? If that is the approach that we take, then what decision or how would this person work on the final action steps for the dilemma that he or she sits with? So kite is basically understanding what are the limiting thoughts, what are the thrusting thoughts, what will turn limitations into possibilities, and then work on an action step for the individual to take a decision towards the goal. So there are many such resources and toolkits that we coaches sit with. And again, you know, ICF is the governing body, one of the governing bodies for the International Coaching Federation. They've been in business for almost 24 years now. And most of the aspiring coaches in the world actually want to get accredited from them, because, you know, just like the course that you are doing, just like the university that you have, one would want to do it from the best in the world so that, you know, you are able to kind of hone yourself best out there. So depending on where you are getting accredited from, which institute you have got your coaching certification from, you will have your toolkits and different resources to tackle coaching issues. I would suggest, Ms. Geeta, if you look at the questions that I showed earlier, those questions could be generically used for a lot of goals that people are trying to find coaching resolution to. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Geeta. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Mandal. Yeah. Yeah, now I invite you to summarize and offer vote of thanks.
I think Ms. Chhaya Sinha has been a splendid speaker, you know, not from the point of view, the way she communicated the entire concept of the thing, but purely from the content point of view. This has given a tremendous insight into the fundamentals of executive coaching, how it helps in development of leadership. She explained very nicely about different aspects of coaching, right from the purpose, the deliverables, and so on and so forth. As Dr. Dhar already mentioned about it, she also gave a fantastic explanation on how coaching differs from mentoring, counseling, advising, and so on and so forth. Blended coaching is something you know, which I never knew that it could happen, but yes, that is another concept which she has given very much nice insight into. It has been a pleasure listening to you, madam, for last 1 hour or so, And I hope the session continued, and we would have got more insights into coaching from you, and perhaps we'll have some other opportunity and some other occasion to listen to you once again. And at that time, I hope you'll get the entire process, the model that you follow, of coaching, some of the success stories, cases, etc., without of course mentioning the names, and how it helps effectiveness, improving effectiveness of an individual, of a leader, as well as of the organization in turn. So thank you very much once again. I thank our Vice Chancellor again for joining us and adding value with that cameo, of difference between person and personality. Every time you listen to him, you get to know something which you hear every day, every other day, but then you don't bother to really get into the meaning of it. But then, when Dr. Dhar is around, you become wiser. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Shukla. This happened to be the last day of the 5-day series of, webinar series. And we had a fantastic experience, and then it could not have been culminated in a better way than Chhaya joining us and gave us her views and insights. I thank all of you. I also thank all the participants who have been with us for all these 5 days on Zoom, YouTube, as well as Facebook live streaming. Let's hope that we get these opportunities more and more, and with the days, with the difficult days still continuing, I think we need to have such series in future. And I have a special request to Dr. Shukla to keep this in mind on HRM particularly, because a lot of things which are yet to be covered. So thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Mandal. Actually, many words of appreciations we are receiving on YouTube. I would like to share one that is from Gandhi. That madam compliments Chhaya ma'am, kindly try to be one of the influential personality in youth mentoring. So many appreciations are in the YouTube. Actually, we are live on YouTube. So I think we should have a final word from Professor Dhar. Blessings from Professor Dhar. Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, I think our speaker today has enriched our knowledge, and she has shared her experiences. And I think I need not to give another lecture. She has done it well, and I believe that everybody has must be feeling benefited. So thank you very much to all. Thanks for Dr. Shukla also for arranging this webinar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Inviting Chhaya for this webinar, and we really feel benefited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chhaya madam. Once again, thanks from all the participants from the
Thank you
audience.
so much, ma'am, for
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would just say that I really appreciate all the good wishes. I hope that all of you take back what you have liked the most and at least implement one of the things in your day-to-day lives. And as a signing off, I would say I leave with a sense of nostalgia coming back virtually to Indore and to others. I think it's a way of me paying forward all that I have learned from great Star Wars. And I would just say that I stand tall today because I have played on the shoulders of giants. So thank you so much. With deep gratitude, I would just say thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.